Now we are going to continue with the third chapter of the article written by Dr. Frank de Varona. Barack Obama needs to be impeached and Hillary Clinton indicted. Please, Dr. de Varona, I would like that you summarize the two first chapters.
Well, thank you for having me again here, Mr. Angulo. We discussed in the first two parts, the first two chapters, how the President of the United States and Hillary Clinton violated all the laws of the United States by, during the war against Qaddafi, an unnecessary war, because Qaddafi wanted to surrender, and they didn't allow him to surrender. They assisted the Muslim Brotherhood of Libya and Al-Qaeda in Libya to overthrow Qaddafi. $1 billion of arms entered to Benghazi. The future ambassador was a special envoy from the White House, Chris Stevens, he was there. There were flags of Al-Qaeda. The United States was very aware. They were helping terrorist organization to overthrow Qaddafi, who by that time was an ally during the war against terror. Then after Qaddafi was overthrown, our ambassador from Tripoli and Benghazi was working with Al-Qaeda and Saad al-Sharia and other Al-Qaeda groups and the Muslim Brotherhood. They were training jihadists in Libya to go and fight in Syria to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, the dictator of Syria. And many weapons were being shipped to them, to Turkey, and Turkey was giving it to the rebels, and most of those rebels were Al-Qaeda connected. In fact, the Times of London, the London newspaper, reported on September 14, the ambassador had been killed 3 days before. In fact, on the day he was killed, he was speaking in front of the diplomatic mission in Benghazi with the Consul General of Turkey, and on the day he was assassinated, along the other 3 people, a ship by the name of the Intisar, that's an Arab name of a Libyan ship, in English is the Victory, that ship left Benghazi and arriving at Turkish port of Iskenderun, and it was carrying 420 tons of cargo, of armaments, including surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, and rocket-propelled grenades. And that came from Libya to Turkey, and in Turkey has a prime minister by the name of Erdogan, who is a Muslim, not a Muslim Brotherhood, but he's a radical Islamist. And those guns ended up in Syria, most of them falling in the hands of Al-Qaeda. And that was documented in this London newspaper. So this is what we were discussing in the first chapter, how there was a gun running operation, an illegal gun running operation going on, supported by the President of the United States and by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, in violation of all the laws of the United States. So in this program now, I would like to discuss the Al-Qaeda Islamic State of Iran and Syria, which is called ISIS. ISIS is an Al-Qaeda Sunni terrorist group called the Islamic State of Iran and Syria, how they have now invaded Iraq, and the entire Middle East now is in flames due to the failure of the foreign policy of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, that have made the situation much worse than it was before they came to power, both of them. So Aaron Klein, the same person that talked about what happened in Benghazi, he wrote an article, just a recent article on June 17, 2014. The article is called "Blowback, United States Trained ISIS at Secret Jordan Base." And this reporter, in his article, explained that members of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, sometimes it says Syria, sometimes call it the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Both names are used for this terrorist group. They were being trained in 2012 by the United States in a secret base in Jordan, according to informed Jordanian officials. These officials said that dozens of ISIS terrorists were trained at the time as a part of assisting the rebels fighting against the dictator Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Turkey and Jordan were running training bases for the Syrian rebels. In this report, if this report is true, I'm sure it is true, it's another indication that President Obama has switched sides against the war of terror, as documented in this report that we have talked about before. This report that had all the generals, the admirals, the CIA officials, how America switched sides in the war of terror, dated April 22nd, 2014. So as a result of the President Obama gun running operation from Libya to Turkey to Syria, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria has now established a caliphate over the territory that stretches from the Syrian city of Raqqa through the northern part of Iraq, and they are 40 miles away from Baghdad. So now we have a caliphate, part of which is in Syria, and they are dominating the northern part of Iraq, except for the Kurds. The Kurds have their own territory. And the United States, President Obama had to send 275 troops to protect the American embassy in Baghdad because of this offensive by these people, more than likely some of them trained by us in Jordan at a secret base, and some of those weapons that went from Libya to Turkey to Syria ended up in the hands of this terrorist group where they are murdering people. In fact, they are vicious killers. When they capture Shiite soldiers in Iraq, they kill them all. 1,700 people were killed in one day, and they filmed the killings because they're bloody murderers. They enjoy killing people. And who's responsible for this? President Barack Obama. The gun running operation and all the things that he has done. So all the efforts of the American armed forces during the Iraq War to eradicate Al-Qaeda from northern Iraq has been in vain. The ISIS savages' rapid advance through northern Iraq has liquidated all the gains we made at a high cost of American blood and treasure for many, many years in that Iraq war. Like that is gone. And it is now obvious that pulling all the US armed forces from Iraq was a very bad idea. Barack Obama was told by members of Congress from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, you have to leave American troops in Iraq, or otherwise Al-Qaeda is going to go back there. And if we had had troops there, we could have been working with the Iraqi army, supporting them in training their soldiers, in intelligence, in a million things. But Barack Obama wanted to pull every single soldier out of Iraq.
It was a political action.
A political action, and it cost us over $1 trillion, and thousands of soldiers, our soldiers, dead, and thousands wounded, seriously wounded, for the rest of their lives. And why did they die for? For nothing. Iraq is in a mess now. Al-Qaeda is in control of northern Iraq like it was before the war. So now my question is President Barack Obama going to tolerate a caliphate of terrorists controlling territory in Syria and Iraq? That's the question I want to ask. Almost all of the territory that ISIS now control is desert area. Mostly it's desert area. The northern part of Iraq is mostly desert. So if he wanted to, and by the way, this ISIS terrorist group, they have captured our tanks that we gave to the Iraqi army because the Iraqi army fled. They were cowards. The Sunni Al-Qaeda linked terrorist group that have been seizing territory from the Shia Iraqis. So imagine now, Iran is laughing at us because all the agreements that we signed with them to stop the enrichment of uranium, they continue to enrich uranium. So now we're going to go to this terrorist country who has stated they want to destroy Israel completely, eradicate Israel as a nation, which has been an ally for years, and now we're going to start talking to the Iranians for joint military exercises in Iraq. This is absolutely insanity, what's happening in our country. So this is very serious, and what I really like to continue talking now is my conclusion, having studied all the things that are going on, and as I documented before, these two reports, the one by Tom Flinton from the, it's called Judicial Watch Special Investigative Report, the Benghazi attack of September the 11th, and the other previous report, plus the reports from the Washington Examiner, from the WND, from the Canadian Free Press, This is all the information that I have gathered in a chapter here as well, in my book that came out in January 2014. So it has a lot of information on Benghazi as well, in this book that can be acquired in Amazon for $25 or electronically in Kindle for $4.99. I have a great chapter here with pictures of General Carter Ham, Admiral Goulet, Petraeus, all of the people that were involved, Leon Panetta, are here in a chapter with pictures. And I'd like to conclude by saying that our...
Before you conclude,
Sure.
I'd like that you say a few words about this interchange that have been with the people who was in Guantanamo.
Oh yes, yes. I'm glad you asked me that question, because that's another sign how our president is not paying attention to national security. We had a soldier by the name of Sergeant Berdal, who is a traitor. He deserted his platoon, and according to Article 25 of the Uniform Military Code of Justice, in a war, a soldier that is a deserted faces the death penalty. In fact, World War II, Korea, every time a soldier deserted, he was shot in the wall, because he left out his people, his soldiers, his fellow soldiers, exposed to the enemy. So this soldier was reading the Quran. He was in a base in Afghanistan near the border with Pakistan. They had a platoon of soldiers there guarding this particular area. So his fellow soldiers have testified, all of them have testified in national news, at Fox News, CNN. They all say the same story. This sergeant was reading the Quran. People thought, well, maybe he's just studying the Quran. Actually, he's probably becoming a Muslim. His father here is a Muslim. I'll mention the father in a second. So he was reading the Quran, he was learning the language of Afghanistan, learning the language as well. And one day, he deserted his troops. He said deserted. So he was captured by the Taliban and lived with them. In fact, there are reports that he was teaching the Taliban how to kill Americans, how to ambush Americans, how to prepare bombs and so forth. The soldiers are appalled, the soldiers that served with him, the old intelligence generals that fought against our soldier in Afghanistan. And now we have traded 5 of them for a deserter who he needs to receive the death penalty. If there was justice in the world, he needs the death penalty because he deserted his soldiers, and that's punished by Article 25 of the Uniform Code of Justice as death penalty. When you desert in a war, your fellow soldiers, is death penalty. Right? So rather than the soldier, he's treated like a hero. He releases his 5 Taliban killers. They're going to Qatar, and in a year or less, they're going to be free to kill more Americans. And the worst part is that 6 young Americans die in Afghanistan trying to rescue this deserter. They die looking for him. What are you going to tell those parents? My son died looking for a deserter who is now treated like a hero, and the parents of this deserter bless the White House for Allah. Imagine how these parents must feel about those 6 brave soldiers that died looking for this deserter, this traitor to the nation, who of course is being protected by another traitor that is in the White House. So my conclusion of all of we'll be talking here is, according to a recent poll, 64% of the American people believe the United States is on the wrong track. 64%. And the reason for a country being a superpower in retreat, as I mentioned in this book here, America in Decline, we are now a superpower in retreat, is due to the failed domestic and foreign policies of President Barack Obama, which has made our nation weak. He projects weakness in the world. So when you project weakness with all of our enemies, you embolden our enemies, you make our enemies stronger. So we have Russia that annexed Crimea without any fear. And now they're sending tanks across the eastern border between Crimea, helping the people in the eastern part of Crimea that wants to cut that piece of Ukraine and annex it to Russia. We have China, who is now claiming 90% of the entire South China Sea as their own territory, and is in conflict with our allies, Japan. They have islands that the Japanese have in the East China Sea. China said, those islands belong to me. There are islands that belong to the Philippines, another U.S. ally, islands that belong to South Korea, islands that belong to Malaysia, to Brunei, and China says all of these islands and the entire sea, 1 million square miles, belongs to China. And our allies are terrified because they see the weakness of our president. Also, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is terrified of seeing Barack Obama supporting Al-Qaeda. They're terrified because they depend on the United States. They have so many enemies, particularly Israel, surrounded by enemies, and they depend on the support of the United States. And they have an unreliable president, a president that has made us a superpower in retreat. And of course, we have North Korea. They continue to develop nuclear weapons. They are improving their intercontinental ballistic missiles so they can eventually hit us with an atomic bomb in the United States. You have Venezuela assassinating people in the streets, Cuba oppressing the Cuban people, killing dissidents in Cuba, like Orlando Payá. You have all of these things going on, and they see the United States as a paper tiger. They see the United States is a superpower that doesn't count anymore. They were in complete retreat, and then what is he doing here? He plays golf. The whole world is falling apart, and our president goes and plays golf. They go on vacation, the wife, the kids, everybody, and the whole world, our national security is in great danger. So the select committee that was set up to investigate the terrorist attack in Benghazi, before and after the terrorist attack, they need to investigate everything. The select committee needs to investigate what happened in the war of Libya, how the president was supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda. They need to investigate the gun running operations that went from Libya to
But
Turkey.
are they doing that right now?
They are doing that right now. They're investigating. They have access to these reports. The two reports that I've shown you, they have these reports, and they have subpoena powers. They have subpoena powers for documents. They can bring the president, Secretary Clinton. They can bring former Secretary of Defense Panetta. They can bring the Joint Chief of Staff. They can bring Petraeus. They can bring Carter Ham. They can bring Admiral Goulet. They can bring whoever they want, put them on the rolls, and testify what happened in Benghazi, what happened in the war of Libya, the gun running operation, and after they do that investigation, if they conclude, as I have concluded, as these people have concluded in these reports, that the President of the United States and Secretary Hillary Clinton violated all the laws in the United States, they will have no choice but to indict the President in the House of Representatives, and the trial will set up in the Senate to try our President for treason, for criminal negligence, and for the dereliction of duty, and to indict Hillary Clinton, who was aware of what's going on, and he supported the President in all of these things. And of course, our President is unfit to be Commander-in-Chief, and he needs to be indicted, and he needs to be impeached, and a trial needs to, because he committed treason against the United States, and we cannot tolerate that of any President. Thank you so much.
Well, my friends, it's up to you to analyze these 3 chapters done by Dr. Frank de Varona and take your decision. The decision is in your hand.